Welcome to Recovery Uncovered. I'm Adam Clarke, recovering heroin addict and alcoholic. For years, my life was consumed by the chaos of addiction, but today I stand before you as a living testament to the possibility of transformation. The goal of this podcast is simple yet powerful, to share the unfiltered stories of addiction. Not to glamorize or sensationalize, we're here to break down the walls of stigma, one story at a time. Recovery Uncovered is more than just a podcast. It's a lifeline for anyone seeking hope, understanding, and the realization that recovery is not only possible, but profoundly beautiful. No matter where you are on your journey, you're not alone. This is Recovery Uncovered.
Attention, now arriving at your destination. The last house on the block.
Welcome back to episode 10 of Recovery Uncovered. Thanks everybody who's joining us live and those of you listening on podcast platforms as well. I'm joined today by a very special guest and dear friend of mine, Birdie. She's going to kind of give us the breakdown. Y'all know the deal. Experience, strength, and hope. She's going to tell us what happened, what it was like, and what it's like now. Because from where I'm sitting, her life has gotten a whole lot better in sobriety than the stories that I've heard, which is kind of hard for me to picture because I've only known Birdie sober. And so, I've never seen the chaos side of what it used to be like. So I don't know about you guys, but I'm really excited to hear her story. And with that, welcome, Birdie.
Thanks, Adam. Thanks for inviting me.
Yeah, absolutely.
I'm really excited to be here. I've been thinking a lot about this and all the stuff that I wanted to share. It's so interesting to talk about recovery on a platform this way. I've been so mesmerized by watching what you're doing here and the way you're bringing recovery to the people. I love it. I love to see it. It's really inspiring. My name's Birdie. I've been in and out, but mostly in recovery for almost 12 years now.
Wow.
Yeah. It's a long time.
Yeah.
It's coming close to half my life.
That's wild.
Yeah. I wouldn't have it any other way.
It's so much better on this side of the street.
Life is, even when life is not good, life is so much better today.
Oh, yeah.
The
The drugs and alcohol, I thought they were a solution, but it just makes it all so much worse.
It turns out no.
Yeah.
Not even a little.
Yeah, just like a sort of Band-Aid.
You and I are similar in the sense that we both realized that we had problems real young.
Yeah.
And started trying to recover real young.
Mm-hmm.
We're both lucky.
100%.
I'm so grateful to have found paths to recovery when my freshman year of college, essentially. I started, that was the first time I ever attended a 12-step meeting. It was the first time I started talking to a therapist about the problems that I had been having. And, I knew way before I was 21 years old that I had a real problem with alcohol.
Mm-hmm.
I grew up in a weird sort of environment. I had two pretty profoundly mentally ill parents. And my mom and dad divorced when I was in like the third grade. And so it was mostly my mom and my little brother and I. And that was hard.
I bet.
Having a really, truly profoundly mentally ill parent can really do some damage. And it can really be affecting of the way that you grow up. A lot of pressure was put on me really young to be responsible, to be good, to do good, as perfect on the outside as I possibly could be. And so I always worked really hard. I did great in school. I was an athlete. I grew up doing martial arts, and I tried really hard to do good and be good. But I before I ever started having, addiction issues, I had mental illness issues.
Mm.
I think that's the case for so many of us.
Oh, yeah.
Before we ever meet a drug or a drink, we meet our brains, and sometimes that can be a problematic place to be.
Well, and as a kid, that doesn't always show on the outside as much. Like when you're blacking out, you're getting high all the time. Like people see that. But when you're suffering up here, and lots of times suffering in silence, it's just like, this is just me. This is normal. This is how everybody else feels. Especially like, I mean, I come from the same situation, divorced parents. And it's not that like if I had came to my parents with something that they wouldn't have listened, but I, because of me, not because of them, didn't ever feel comfortable talking about the truth of what was going on up here.
Yeah.
And so I was just going at it alone.
I definitely see, I see where poverty affected me a lot and has affected me a lot my entire life, even now. But like, I didn't have access to a lot of the help that I needed as a kid. I think even if I had been in a situation where my parents were getting me help, we couldn't have afforded it. We didn't have the resources to get me the help that I needed. And so we were a stuff it under the rug sort of family,
Bury it down deep.
You keep smiling and doing good in school and don't tell anybody how sad you are. And everything's going to be fine.
Yeah.
So, I tried real hard to be responsible, and I did a pretty good job. But I had a bad accident, and had to quit training, and that's when things really started to go downhill for me. I had found alcohol before that. Growing up in a martial arts sort of environment, all my friends were dudes. Most of them were a lot older than me.
Yeah.
And so, 8th grade through 11th grade, I had all the access I needed to the good parties and the older people and the alcohol and the drugs. And then I had that accident, and a lot of things changed for me. And I found very quickly that I was becoming dependent, especially on alcohol. I was drinking a lot. I think my senior year of high school, I don't recall days not drinking at school.
Wow.
Like a little in the morning just to get me going sometimes.
So it progressed rapidly at a young age.
So quickly, I went from like a party, every other weekend or so, to I've got to have some tequila on my way to school, or I am too anxious to cope.
Was that accident before your senior year?
It was the summer. It was the summer between junior and senior year.
And so that's what basically killed martial arts for you, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
It's interesting. I learned this from a trauma therapist when I was going through treatment, and they were talking about basically we have good or bad outlets for our feelings. And my experience is similar. I did Taekwondo at a young age, but then I was super involved in the youth group at church, and I was really big in band at school, and I was our section leader for several years. And then I went to college, and I didn't have church. I didn't have the band. I didn't have any of those good outlets. And then I was introduced to alcohol and marijuana, and it was like, this works, and this works a lot better than that other stuff worked.
Absolutely.
And I was off to the races.
Yeah. I can totally relate.
Yeah.
After that accident, a lot of things changed for me, and I tried so hard to still keep it together. And senior year, I did okay. I was very involved in school. I still made pretty good grades. I was in student government and theater and tutoring programs and all kinds of stuff. But I was miserable, and it felt like such a performance every day, like a show that I was putting on. And then I graduated high school and I went to college, and I didn't have any of those those demands for perfection anymore. I didn't have, I didn't have that oversight. I didn't have, there weren't a lot of restrictions put on me. I had a little too much freedom in high school. However, all of that was, how do you say it? Contingent on me staying out of trouble.
Yeah.
And once I didn't have anybody to stay out of trouble for, I was downhill so fast. I went to a private Christian university on scholarship, and it worked on a trimester system. Not instead of 2 semesters, you had 3 trimesters.
Oh.
And by the second trimester, like, I lost my scholarship. I drank my way out of my sorority. I was on academic probation. I was on campus probation, which was different. I'd gotten in some trouble for being drunk in a fountain on campus, which was frowned upon. And
makes sense.
The statue of the Lord in the middle. I was being disrespectful. I truly was, but I was a drunk 18-year-old.
Yeah.
I was an alcoholic 18-year-old child with too much freedom and some scholarship money in my pocket. And I, as we do our freshman year of college, I met the love of my life.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. And he was an SAE party boy with his own house off campus. And it was downhill so fast.
It's crazy how at that age, like, I think it's true for most 18-year-olds, but for me especially, like, I thought I was so grown. I was like, I'm an adult.
Yes.
I just turned 18.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, I just left high school 3 months ago, but I'm
Right.
grown. Don't tell
Mm-hmm.
me nothing. I know what I'm doing. I know what I want to do. Like, and now looking back at 30, I'm like, I didn't know shit. Nothing. But I was so confident.
Poor little alcoholic child.
Yeah. Yeah, I was a child.
Yeah. So, I'm drinking and drugging my way out of everything an 18-year-old could have possibly accomplished for herself at a rapid speed.
Mm-hmm.
And I start having some health problems.
Mm.
And it turns out that I have a kidney disease.
Ooh.
And I don't know if you know how your kidneys work or what your kidneys do, but being an alcoholic with a kidney disease is not something you want to be.
Doesn't mix well.
It does not mix well. And so I just start getting catastrophically sick.
Mm.
And I saw some doctors, and they were like, hey, your liver shows the choices of someone twice your age.
Wow.
And your kidneys are declining in function, like, rapidly. So maybe, it's just a suggestion, you should not drink any alcohol. And I was like, oh, yeah, sure, bet. I'm going to take care of myself. I'm going to be, things are not working out so well at school, so I'm just going to try to get right.
Yeah.
Going to try to get it together. And so by this time, I'd flunked out of school. And I moved back to Macomb. My dad had gotten really sick. We found out my dad was dying. So Dad moved to Macomb so that he could be closer to my little brother and I. And I moved in with him and began, I became his full-time caretaker at like 19.
That's a lot of weight for a 19-year-old to carry.
It was.
Especially one with an alcohol problem.
A sick alcoholic
Yeah.
19-year-old with a drug-dealing boyfriend.
Classic.
Don't forget him, the love of my life.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
And that worked out great, right? He's still around?
You know, crazy enough, I stayed with him for almost 6 years.
Wow.
From 18 to 24. That was a huge portion of my, that was my young adulthood.
Yeah.
I spent in that relationship convincing myself that he was the one and that none of his behaviors and choices were affecting me and my addiction at all.
He loves me, so
He
it doesn't
loves
matter.
me. Yeah, we're so in love. And so, as you can imagine, things got terrible. I started attending the junior college in my hometown. I was a student full-time trying to fix the damage I'd done to my GPA.
I feel that.
She still ain't recovered.
Yeah.
I am more recovered than my GPA still. And I was working 2 almost full-time jobs and taking care of my dad and drinking myself into oblivion every day. Just to get through it all. And then, I started trying. I would try to go without drinking. I would try to, just smoke pot or limit myself greatly. I'm not going to drink until 5. I'm not going to drink, I won't go drink unless I go out with my friends tonight.
Mm-hmm.
Or, eventually I got to this embarrassing point where I was moving up that start time every day. Well, now I won't drink until 4.
It's funny how that's so normal
I'll
for
try not
us
to drink in the morning.
alcoholics. Like to set those rules on ourselves.
Yeah.
Normal people don't have to set rules around their drinking.
No, not at all.
Yeah, I didn't realize that because I tried all those same things. Like, not until this time, not going to drink this drink, we're only going to drink this. All the substitutions, all the rules, and only in recovery have I found out that normal people just don't have that problem.
Right.
They just drink when it's appropriate
Mm-hmm.
and generally not to excess.
Yeah.
Wild. I can't fathom.
So, it wasn't going well.
Yeah.
Also, it's worth noting that boyfriend was also a bartender, and his family business was a very successful liquor store.
Ooh.
There was always free booze. And it's really hard to quit drinking when there's always free booze.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's rough.
And I tried. I went to a few 12-step meetings here and there, but it just wasn't for me. They talked about God a whole lot, and I could not successfully quit drinking. And it seemed like the catch of being allowed to go to those meetings, was that they kind of expect you to quit drinking.
Yeah.
And no matter what I tried, I just couldn't manage it. And then I had a real hard year. You ever had a real hard year?
I had a real hard decade.
Where a trillion terrible things happened at once.
Yeah.
That was 2016 for me. I'd finished at the junior college, and my dad was so sick, but I decided to try to go to USM, and I was commuting from Macomb to Hattiesburg a lot, trying to take care of Dad, trying to work, trying to stay sober, and failing every day. And things were just terrible. And then in February of that year, my best friend purposefully overdosed and killed herself. In April of that year, I was attacked and very violently sexually assaulted in Hattiesburg. Subsequently, spent some weeks in the hospital and then flunked out of school. And then in August, my dad died.
Jeez, one thing after the next.
And then in November, that relationship ended. And it destroyed me.
Yeah, your whole
I
world
was
was crumbling.
destroyed. In recovery, you hear people talk about their bottoms, And a lot of time it's, I lost this, and a lot of people's bottoms are the consequences of their actions. But none of that stuff on my bottom was stuff that I did. And so it was, I felt so defeated.
Yeah.
I felt so defeated. And to be honest, man, I just wanted to die. And I tried. But here I am. I had a really great friend who took me back to 12-step meetings. And it took a long time. A long time of trying and failing. And, you know, we pick up these chips in 12-step meetings to recognize various lengths of sobriety. And the first one you get is a 24-hour chip. It's just to show that you have a desire to try. And I got so many of those. But they told me to keep coming back, and I did. And slowly and surely, things got a little more manageable. Taking the alcohol and the drugs away was a great first step. But, you know, just like I said, I was broken before I ever found those things. You know, we take those things away. We take those drugs and the drink off the plate, but there we are, still there.
I'm still here.
I'm still
and
here.
All of my problems are still here.
All of my brokenness. And so, you know, a huge part of my recovery is sobriety. But for me, recovery today is not just about not putting drugs and alcohol in my body anymore. I'm recovering from all kinds of things, from my trauma, from other issues, from like issues with disordered eating and self-harm, and dealing with my mental illness, and like working through trauma. And it's a lot. You know, sobriety is a big piece. And I think of it, I heard this guy talking once in a meeting about how, like, it sort of works like an upside down triangle, and like sobriety is at the bottom, and it's a tiny little pinpoint, but we build everything else on top of that. And it expands upwards and outwards, and it gets beautiful and it gets better. But if we mess with the tiny little thing at the bottom that we're building on top of, if we mess with that sobriety, like,
yeah, it just all comes crumbling down.
It's all going to come crumbling down.
I think that's a pretty common misconception for people who are like, I don't know, sober curious or thinking that they might have a problem, is that like, if I just remove the drugs and alcohol, my life's going to get so much better.
Yeah.
Which, I mean, it did, but I love that description that you gave. I heard somebody else say that like drugs and alcohol is like putting a Band-Aid on a bullet wound.
Yes.
Like we remove the Band-Aid, but I still got a hole in my side. And so like then there's all of the work that goes on top of that to make me well. Which I totally thought that like, all right, we're going to get through these 30 days of treatment. I'm going to be well. Everything's going to be great. Everyone's going to know how good I'm doing. I'm super sober. I deserve a job with all the money. I need a wife right now.
Yes.
And like, I wasn't ready for any of that stuff. I barely was responsible enough for the slightly over minimum wage job that I got when I first got sober. Like, I would have, if I had gotten all the gifts that I wanted at that point, I would have ruined them all. You know, I had to do the work. I
just had a very similar conversation with one of my spiritual mentors, and I was talking to her about how I sort of have beef with God right now about my expectations and how I think, I had this plan. We all have this plan. I had this plan for myself, and I'm so far from being anywhere close to having any of the things that I had planned. And I was talking to her about that, and she was like, I get that you feel behind. I'm turning 30 this year, and, that's a doozy. It's always a It's hard. Gets you in the gut.
Yep.
But she was like, yeah, you feel behind, but that's because you're living in comparison.
Ooh.
And if you looked at just your situation, you would realize that before now, you were not ready to be anyone's wife. You were not ready to be someone's mother. You were not responsible enough to own a home.
Mm-hmm.
You were not responsible enough to have a career. Thank God for sobriety, because now I'm ready. And it's not happening on my time. It's happening on my higher power's time. But I'm so glad that I got the opportunity to start recovering early so that I didn't ruin those things.
Absolutely.
So that I don't have a broken marriage and children that I've
scarred. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, 100%. I think, that those of us who got lucky enough or blessed enough to get sober young, like, it's easy to look at other people who got sober older, but like how did you get the job and the wife and the kids while you were drinking, and overlook the fact that, like, what you just said, like, I would have damaged all that if I had it already.
Yeah.
Or it would have crumbled and fallen apart. And then, like, I would have a kid who is now a child of divorce, which is what we both are and what neither one of us want our future children to be.
Nope.
And so, like, at some points it's frustrating because it's like, I want it and I want it now. Are you not hear me, God? I'm right here.
It's really frustrating to want to, there's one thing, it's one thing to want something when my motives maybe aren't so good. But I really don't think there's anything wrong with me as a 30-year-old woman just sort of wanting a husband,
Yeah.
and a family and some establishment.
Absolutely.
But I have to believe personally, or else I go a little crazy, that my higher power's plan and will is better than what I planned.
Absolutely.
I'm real grateful today that I don't have all the things I wanted and all the things that I planned.
Mm-hmm.
I'm so glad I didn't, the loss of that really long relationship, I thought it was going to break me. Now looking back, I'm overwhelmed with gratitude.
Yeah.
That God was doing for me what I couldn't do for myself.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I get that 100%. I've had situations like that in my life too, where, like, if some outside force or the other person hadn't chosen to leave, I would have just sat in lukewarm misery, pretending that I was happy and that this is exactly what I wanted. There's so many great examples of that in my story, of God doing for me what I couldn't do for myself. It's one of my favorite little AA era recovery sayings.
Yeah.
That I heard an old timer say was that God doesn't wear a watch, but He's always on time. Because I'd be looking at my watch and I'm waiting.
I could get my tambourine out and testify to that one. That's real good.
But it does. It hits because, my story and your story shows that. Like, we didn't always get what we wanted.
This was not what I planned.
Been given what we needed.
Yeah.
I've never had to go without. And even if I thought I was going without, like, I've never died of starvation. I've always had somewhere to sleep. It may not have been the prettiest place to sleep, or it may not have been the food that I wanted to eat, but my needs have been met, and that's something that was not the case before sobriety.
Yeah,
it's just it's a really beautiful thing.
Our 12-step recovery literature offers some promises. That the writers of that literature see manifest when you practice the principles of the 12-step programs. Specifically, as you work your way through the steps, you go through a lot of actions and house cleaning and righting wrongs. And when you come to the end of that work, you see that these promises from our literature have come true in your life. And one of those promises is that we will no longer fear financial insecurity. Now, I struggle with that one because I am still financially insecure. I always have been, and I think part of that is some generational poverty that is just very hard to overcome.
Mm-hmm.
But some of it is the fact that I'm an educator and I'm just never going to be very well paid. But today, I have less fear than I ever have been. Not because the money's there, but because today I'm employable. I'm responsible. I can show up on time most of the time. I can do a good job at just about any job I tried to do. And that's only because of what I've learned in sobriety. That's only because I practice the principles of a program and because I work really hard to stay sober and be the best version of myself. I do have financial fears. And I am financially insecure. However, that's one of my favorite promises today. Because at the beginning of recovery, I didn't understand that one. All I saw was that generational stuff that it seems like I'll never be able to, overcome. However, today I know that, I can work. I can take care of myself. I may not have all the nice, shiny things that I would like, but because I'm sober and recovering, I'm capable of taking care of myself today.
Mm-hmm. Well, and the cool thing about staying sober for some time is that, now we have proof to look back on that.
Yeah.
I've watched my checking account be overdraft and my credit cards be maxed out in sobriety for no other reason than Adam made dumb decisions with money.
Yeah.
And I've watched slowly as I've been able to crawl out of that and still working out of some of that. And but at the same time, there's fear surrounding it, but I also know deep down in my soul that God's got me.
Mm-hmm.
If I keep practicing these principles,
It's going to be okay.
it's going to be okay.
Mm-hmm.
It may not be fun. It may not be pretty. It may look like a lot of ramen noodles with hot sauce.
Yes.
But I'm going to make it through because I have undeniable proof of the last 5+ years where God carried me through when I thought that I couldn't make it through.
Yeah.
And so now when that fear does crop up, I get to lean back on that. I can sit in fear for a minute and then I can be like, all right, get your shit together, Adam.
Yeah.
Snap out of it. Look back. Has God let you down?
Mm-hmm.
No, he hasn't. Is God going to let you down this time? No, I don't think so. All right, well, buck up, get your shit together,
Put
and
your
let's
big
move
girl
forward.
panties on.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Put your big girl panties on, Adam, and let's go kick today's ass. And I have to talk to myself like that sometimes because I forget, and I can get lost in that cycle, and I like to spiral.
Ooh.
When I have something that's eating my lunch, I like to think about it until
The
it
book
gets
says
worse.
we manufacture our own misery.
Yeah. Oh,
I'm
good
so
at that one.
good at that.
I have lots of practice.
Real talented.
Yeah, but I try not to do that, and I try, and with time and practice, I've gotten better at catching the spiral when it's up here before I've spiraled all the way to the
down.
bottom.
For me, a huge part of that today is getting other people involved in that process.
100%.
I have mentors. I have a sponsor. I have trusted friends in a community within recovery of people who love me enough to call me out on my shit.
Yeah.
To be real honest with me. I'm so grateful for that. I have several friends who it's interesting to have friends who aren't in recovery, who aren't in a 12-step program. I love watching them listen to the way that we speak to one another. I have some girlfriends who are not like us. They're not one of us at all. They're not in the program. They don't have addiction issues. And they heard me on a phone call with my sponsor the other day. And I had called her to whine, essentially, if we're being real with one another. I called her to whine.
Fair.
And she was busy. She called me back later while I was with my friends. And I answered it, and I was like, I was struggling with a work thing. I have been struggling with the same work thing for a while. And she was like, have you implemented any of the solutions I suggested the last time you complained about this? And my friends were like, and I was like, no. And she goes, call me back when you have. And she hung up on me. And that is very typical for our relationship. But my friends were stunned. Too stunned.
Mortified.
They were like, and I was like, nah, she's right. I got to do better.
Yeah.
And today I take that sort of hard ass love
Mm-hmm.
and I let it be the motivator that I need to get out of myself.
Yeah. Well, that's what it is. Like, it's because she loves you and she cares about you that she's willing to potentially sacrifice your feelings in the moment.
Oh, she'll hurt my feelings
good.
so fast. I have friends who aren't like just friends, not sponsors, just friends who were that honest with me.
Yeah.
And I'm so grateful for it. I have so many friends who will tell me in a heartbeat, you're being ungrateful. Or you're not living in the solution right now.
Mm-hmm.
Or you're choosing to dwell on this. You're choosing to stay stuck. You're making bad choices. Do not call him back.
Yeah.
Well, thank God for trusted friends who are honest with me today. Mm-hmm. It's one of the best gifts that I've received from recovery.
Absolutely.
Is real friends who love me and will do hard things to love me.
Yeah. There's something special about that recovery community that I wish everybody could get to experience, because it's such a beautiful thing, and it's something that doesn't always come naturally to me. Like, when I have friends tell me stuff, my first instinct sometimes is to, oh, it'll be okay, we can do this, this, and this, or it'll get better. And I realize that usually I need a little tough love, and sometimes I need to be willing to give a little tough love.
Listen, the easier, softer way is not the best way to love people sometimes.
And it's not easier or softer in the long run.
No, it's not helpful.
Yeah, it's
not
the same
productive.
as drugs and alcohol. Like, it's the instant fix without any long-term solution to it. It just, all right, I'm going to say this to get me out of saying something else uncomfortable, but then, like, I'm doing a disservice to my friend, to somebody I love, if I'm not honest with them about, hey, bro, why don't you do the steps? Why don't you work this program? You see all of these people around you who are living happy, joyous, and free, and you say that you want that, and we're all telling you, if you want what we have, do what we did. And you're like, nah, bro. Like, no, sometimes you gotta lay it out to somebody like that, because sometimes I need that to be able to hear it.
Yeah.
I can hear you say, like, oh, work the steps, get a sponsor, da-da. And I'm like, okay. Sometimes I'm like, Adam, you're going to drink again. And if you drink again, you're going to die if you don't do this.
Yeah.
Like, that is the fate for us. Hospitals, institutions, or death. Like, if you're alcoholic in the way that I am, like, those are your options at the end of the road. You may can teeter along for a while. One drink doesn't mean I'm straight to the penitentiary. But, like, I never got arrested when I wasn't drinking. And I haven't got arrested since I quit drinking.
Yeah.
I did get arrested while I was drinking. So, like, the math is right there in front of me. It makes sense. But sometimes I need somebody else to shove it in my face for me to actually be able to see it.
I think the most radically impacting conversations I had with people in really early recovery and early sobriety were with women in 12-step programs who were the first people, including doctors, who told me I was going to die. Who told me that, like, yes, you're 18 and you feel like you're on top of the world and you feel like everything's going to be fine, but you're sick and you're going to die. Thank God.
Yeah.
Those women were willing to be honest with me. Were willing to, like, I was so in denial. I was so convinced that that I was a nice, responsible girl, and there was just no way I was an alcoholic. I made good grades and I did my best, and I was like, I'm a good person. I made a lot of terrible choices, Adam, but I'm a nice girl.
Yeah.
And I was just so sure that, like, alcoholics and drug addicts were violent criminals under bridges with brown paper bags,
Mm-hmm.
and that just couldn't possibly be me. And those women were the first people who were like, it can be you. It is you. Let's look at this checklist of alcoholic qualifiers, and you just tell me how many of them relate to you. There was nothing on that list about living under a bridge.
Yeah, I did not like that list.
You know what there
It
was?
exposed me.
Couldn't keep a healthy relationship. We're prone to miserable depression episodes. Check, all the way down the list. And by the end of it, I was like, oh no. Oh no.
Yeah.
But the radical honesty of those people, of those women, changed it for me. It was the first time, because even my doctors at that point were very sugarcoaty. We're I don't know. I didn't understand the brevity of the problem until those people were honest with me.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I had similar circumstances like that. Like when I went into treatment and they did like the 16-panel drug screen, and I popped for like 12 things on there. And there was only like 4 or 5 things that I knew I had been taking. And so that means that there was like 6 or 7 other substances that stuff was cut with, or it was mixed or impure or whatever, yada, yada. Fentanyl being one of them. And like the intake nurse was like, you're so lucky that you're alive.
Yeah.
And like I knew I had a problem, but I didn't, I don't know if I didn't know or just like I didn't believe it. It was like I was playing with death.
Yeah.
You know, and it's gotten worse since I've gotten sober. Like the fentanyl epidemic is just through the roof. Like my understanding is there's nothing that's not cut basically on the streets anymore. And I mean, the proof that I have is the number of friends I've buried in the last 5 years.
Yeah.
Who were in sobriety, went back out for a couple days and never came back, you know. And it's scary, but like that's the stuff that I needed to hear.
Yeah.
When they told me in rehab that like 1 in 10 of y'all will make it. Like I needed to hear that. I didn't like it. I didn't like looking around at the friends that I'd made in those 30 days and thinking that, you know, a whole lot of us weren't going to be here, but it ended up being the truth. You know, there was like 40 to 60 something guys who were in the treatment center that I went to at the same time. And I'm talked to one of them last year because our sobriety dates are basically the same.
Mm-hmm.
And we were both celebrating 5 years.
Yeah.
And it's us two and one other guy who've stayed sober out of like 60 people.
Jeez.
So that's less than 1 in 10. And like sometimes it's like, why me? Why did I get to be the one? But you know,
I totally get that.
It's because I was willing to do the work. And that's not to say anything negative about anybody who didn't, but like my rock bottom was bad enough that I was desperate. You know, I was searching and reaching out for anybody who knew anything more than me because I'd gotten to the point where I figured out that I didn't know shit about how to fix me.
Yeah.
I had tried all the ways that I thought I could find. I think I've shared it on here before, but like I remember Googling like how to get off of heroin.
Oh,
And
yeah.
it-
You
it-
have
it
talked about that
doesn't-
on here before. I've seen that
doesn't
episode.
work great.
No,
Yeah, it didn't
it
work.
turns out no.
Yeah. But like I had exhausted all my options.
Mm-hmm.
And that's the place that I had to get to because there was nowhere else inward to turn. I could only look outwards for help.
Everything inward is what brought me to where I was.
Yeah.
There was nothing inward to like every, and I don't say that dramatically, every single healthy coping skill I have, I did not learn until I got to Alcoholics Anonymous. Until I started a recovery journey, there was nothing within me that I could use to help myself.
Mm-hmm.
There's a chapter in our literature where it says, and I relate so deeply to this, that no amount of willpower or good character or religion or desire to do right or your goals or ambitions, if you are afflicted with addiction, nothing you have within yourself is going to be enough.
Yeah, it doesn't
to
work.
get you out of it. It's not enough. Every bit of my own self-will was insufficient. Every time.
And I don't know why we think that like we're the ones who got ourselves to those places.
Right.
You know, I thought that I was doing my best, or at least trying for most of that time. And it's like, all right, we removed the drugs and alcohol, and it's like suddenly I'm supposed to know how to fix my other problems. Like, it's crazy.
Yeah.
It's insanity.
For me, that's where the rest of my recovery comes in. That's where like in-depth work with a therapist and a psychiatrist and spiritual counsel, not just like from within recovery spaces, but like spiritually. I'm seeking help. I'm seeking help for my outside issues, seeking help because I don't have it within me. I don't have the resources.
Mm-hmm.
But today, I have the willingness to ask for help. And that makes all the difference.
Oh yeah, I mean that's the game changer right there. Is, you know, being far along enough in our journeys to realize that like I realize that I know very little.
Yeah.
You know, I know enough to help carry somebody else through the same way that I was carried through,
Mm-hmm.
but that there is so many more people with vastly more experience than I am who are not only willing, are dying to share their experience.
Yeah.
And like it's not the same as, you know, when we were drinking and using and like you ask somebody for help on something like that. There was always an exchange there.
Yes.
Whether it was money, I'm paying you in pizza and beer to help me move. Like there was never just, I want to help you because I want to help.
Even in what felt like friendships.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like people that I would have called my best friends at the time.
Oh, yeah.
Wouldn't always pick up the phone when I needed them.
No, it was extremely transactional.
100%.
It's life-altering today to have friends who don't want a single thing from me but my love.
Yeah.
That's amazing. That's changed my life.
Incredible experience.
Yeah.
To have people who just want to be friends with Adam because they like Adam. And not
because
because
Adam's
I
a good
bring
person
anything
today.
to the table.
Yeah.
Which is wild.
He's worth being friends with.
Yeah, that's God did. You know, it wasn't me on my own.
Yeah.
It was, you know, it was God and other people who were further along in the journey than I am.
Yeah.
Which, you know, it brings me back to what you were saying about like sobriety just being the start.
Mm-hmm.
You know, like there were so many other pieces of the puzzle that I had to put together. Like, you know, one of the things that our literature talks about is pausing when agitated.
Ooh.
Not just reacting immediately
Yeah.
to situations
That's a huge
that I
one.
can't control.
Mm-hmm.
That's another thing it taught me is that, you know, from the tip of my nose to the back of my skull is all that I can control. Adam is only in control of Adam.
Yeah.
Adam can't make Birdie do anything. Adam can't make Danny do anything, and vice versa. And so I can control how I react to a situation.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I can control my words.
Yeah.
But that's about it. And so learning to stop instead of just instantly react. And sometimes that pause is not just a brief pause. Sometimes that's, I need to take a beat.
Yeah.
I need to get out of this situation.
I will
need
call
to
you back
call
tomorrow.
somebody.
Yeah.
I need to seek counsel before I speak to this person
Absolutely.
again, or before I move forward with this situation. And like, that was something that I never had before. It was always just go, 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 go on to the next thing.
Mm-hmm.
And consequences be damned. And I found out today that I don't like consequences. I don't
Just today?
like,
You just learned that
just today. Yeah, it took me 5.5 years. But I don't, like I found out that a lot of the consequences that I've suffered from previously were completely avoidable if I had chosen better action. And that stings sometimes, because it brings me back to what else you said. Like, I manufacture my own misery,
Mm-hmm.
but I don't have to anymore. And that's pretty damn great.
Yeah.
Like, it doesn't have to get that bad.
It's a little wild sometimes when I think about the fact that I get to choose to let it, that, him, whatever, affect me today.
Mm-hmm.
I have the power to, like, remove myself from a situation and call on external help, whether that be from my higher power, the people I trust to guide me, my friends, whatever. I don't have to live in stuff where I'm miserable today.
Yeah.
I don't.
We don't have to sit in
We
that
don't
no
have
more.
to do that no more.
Yeah. I ain't got to live like that no more.
It's a whole new world.
It really is, though. Like, it's such a beautiful experience to have known the depths of darkness from which I came from,
Mm-hmm.
and then to get to experience this life today, which is so much better than what I deserve.
Yeah.
If I got the consequences from all of those actions that I did, like, I would be locked up.
I don't like thinking about what I deserve.
Yeah.
Mm,
Because it's not great.
I'm grateful for grace today.
100%. I'm grateful for a God who doesn't give me what I deserve, because it would be an ugly situation.
And not just what I deserve, but what I was actively working towards in
Yeah.
some situations.
I had big dreams of being like a criminal enterprise drug dealer. Like, I never was really much more than a middleman, but I had these aspirations. Me and
Big
Will talked
schemes.
about it, of being Al Pacino, like,
Yeah.
just the bundles of cocaine,
That's
and
so
the
funny.
guns and the guards and the girls.
Do
and
you
like,
see you?
yeah, I know. I do not fit the description. I didn't even fit the description when I was just a lowly middleman, trying to make enough to get my own bag. But, like, it's so fun, because that's what I was trying to do.
Yeah.
Like, I remember I was on probation, and my probation ended contingent upon me paying the rest of my fines. And so I didn't have to do the whole year if I paid my fines. Fines are hard to pay when you're
Mhm.
also trying to buy drugs and alcohol.
Yes.
And you're trying to buy the stuff that you need to pass the drug test that you're getting every month, so that you can
Yes.
continue to do the drugs and alcohol. And I asked this guy how I could make some extra money. And there was an opportunity for me to get into a car that was not mine, loaded with something which I was not going to know what it was, drive it 3 hours, pick up another car, and drive back down. Well, it turns out these people are connected to some cartel. And so I almost went through with it. I don't even remember why I didn't. But, like, that was my best thinking. I'm on probation. If I get caught doing any crimes,
is a
I'll go
great
to jail.
plan.
But what I could do is just do one drug run for the cartel, make enough money to pay off my fines, and then I won't be on probation. That was the best I had. Like, what? What? It makes no logical sense. And, like, that's what you said. That's what I was shooting for. I was purposely driving myself down the hill. And it's an ugly place to be.
One time, a dear friend of mine, he's kind of like a sober father figure in my life. I was sort of popping off at the mouth and lacking a great deal of humility and telling him what I thought about a situation. And we were standing in a 12-step room, and he said, "Your best thinking qualifies you to be here. To be here
Yeah.
right now talking to me about this. Your best thinking is not going to get you very far."
Bless
Sorry
you.
about my gnarly cough.
That's all
I know
right.
that's a killer on the microphone.
One of my favorite things that I've heard people say is, no one ends up in a 12-step program because they were on a winning streak.
On a winning streak, yeah. 2016 ended on a very low note for me. And I came into the rooms of recovery so broken and just in shambles. I was physically sick, emotionally sick, spiritually sick. And I'm so grateful today for the way that those people treated me through that process with so much kindness and compassion. I'm grateful to have found people who understood me. I was not receiving any sort of understanding for what I was going through at home.
Mm.
And my friends were all partying and didn't understand why I was trying to get sober. And so I didn't have any support there. Even when I told my friends, I explained to my friends how sick I was. They were just like, you'll be fine.
Yeah.
You'll be fine. And it took me a while to realize that it was different for them. Like, they all went through that party phase and moved on.
Mm-hmm.
Like people who aren't alcoholics and drug addicts do. And had I continued with my behavior, that would not have been the case for me.
Oh, yeah.
I would be dead.
It was just going to get worse.
It was just going to get worse. And, there were a few relapses where I proved that to myself. Where I was like, I picked up 90 days. My first 90 days, I made it 90 whole days with no alcohol. I never quit using drugs, for the record, for that 90 days. I just quit drinking. That was enough for me.
Yeah.
I thought surely that was the problem. And I thought, I did it 90 days. I can do some monitored, scaled back, responsible drinking. And I did that twice. Twice, I went to the bar and I had 3 drinks, and then I quit. And those were the only 2 times that I was able to have any sort of control at all. And after those 2 times, I went back to the bar and it was 5 drinks. And then the next night, I drank so much I couldn't go home.
Mm.
And 2 weeks later, I was like, wait, I had a handle on it.
Yeah.
I was doing okay. I figured it out. What happened? What happened?
It just doesn't work like that for people
Is
like
that
us.
I have no control.
Yeah.
It's not within me.
Well, and it's one of the hardest things I feel like for people entering or thinking about, getting sober, to grasp is, in 12-step programs, the first step talks about I'm powerless over alcohol and my life's unmanageable, or insert whatever substance or addiction you want to put instead of alcohol. But the I'm powerless part. And I think what's not necessarily explained well in step 1 or glossed over is that by working the next 11 steps, you get that power back as long as you don't drink or drug again. Mm-hmm. Today, I'm not powerless over alcohol. I absolutely have the power of choice to choose to go to the liquor store and get drunk when I go home tonight, but I also know what that leads to for me.
Yeah.
And it may go good once or twice. I may just have a couple and smoke a cigar, and it'll be real chill, but some switch will get flipped in me, and that phenomenon of craving will kick in, and I will start to want more, and then I'll start pushing that line in the sand out a little bit further. Well, 2 drinks was okay. Maybe I could try 3.
We love
You
to
know
compromise
what?
our own boundaries.
Yeah. That 3rd drink, it set pretty well. And you know what? I had dinner earlier, so how about 4 and 5?
And that 5th one was so good, I'll smoke a blunt.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden, I'm on some unknown city on some Martin Luther King Street
Yeah.
buying a bag of dope from somebody that I ain't got no business dealing with, and I'm back to square one.
And we don't know how we got there.
Uh-huh.
I never, every time it happened, every time I relapsed, I would look back at that escalation and genuinely not have an answer.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know how we got back here.
Yeah.
I don't know. I was trying so hard. Every time.
And the cool thing about, having that power back through working the steps or however you get to your recovery is that, like, when I first got sober, I couldn't necessarily fathom never drinking again. The thought of having a dry wedding or all these things sounded so lame because all of my friends drank and used, and those are the people that I wanted to be around. Now, basically, none of my friends drink and use. Most of them are in recovery.
Yeah.
I have some family who drinks totally non-alcoholically. I've got some friends who drink on occasion, and they manage just fine. They don't lose jobs, destroy relationships. Their cars don't get repoed.
Yeah, right.
None of that great stuff that I always like to do. But, like, there's no part of me that feels like I'm missing out anymore. When I think about, like, having a wedding without alcohol, like, my friends will get down sober. They will throw that thing in a circle, and, like,
with no hesitation.
Right
now.
And, like, we don't need any liquid courage anymore.
Nah.
Like, we get weird. We had people over at my house hanging out till, like, 3 a.m. last night. Stone cold sober.
Fun.
Yeah, laughing our asses off, playing some stupid games, but it was great. And never once was I like, you know what would make this better? Some whiskey or some weed. And that's something that I could never fathom when I first got sober, is like, I knew that I needed to be sober, but that the desire would completely be gone, that I wouldn't want to get high anymore, that I would never want to drink. That's something that it's a blessing that I didn't know that I was going to get.
For me, those unfathomable things are a little different. I hear what you're saying, but when I first started getting sober, those aren't the things that I thought I'd never be able to live without. I thought, if I quit drinking, I'm never going to be comfortable again. If I quit smoking weed, I'm never going to be relaxed again. I'm never going to feel at ease. I'm never going to be my funny, bouncy self in a social situation without my tequila. I'm never going to be okay again.
Yeah.
That's why I was drinking.
Mm-hmm.
Was to just feel a little quiet, to just change my feelings and my thoughts a little. And it took a long time. But those first few moments where I realized I was at ease in a room, or my legs weren't vibrating uncontrollably.
Yeah.
The first time I stood in a chair and shook my ass in a Y-paw, stone cold sober. And I realized I'm not scared. I have very little fear of social situations today. I can match the calamity of my life with some internal serenity today. And I never thought I would have those things without alcohol.
It's so true. I never thought that I would be okay just being Adam.
Yeah.
And be okay with me no matter what you thought of me or what anybody else thought of me or all of these things. I was one who tried to doll up my outside so that you couldn't see my insides.
Yeah.
the beauty of being able to look in the mirror and just be okay with Adam is an indescribable gift. And it's something that I never thought I would get.
I feel that. I've done that. I've done that my whole life. I've always had really low self-esteem because of my appearance. And I've always worked so hard to be the life of the party. Really take on that funny fat friend thing, you know? And today I feel comfortable enough in myself that I don't have to do that all the time. That every interaction I have with you doesn't need to be a show that I'm putting on to make you like me. I can settle into the fact that I'm a nice person and I am profoundly lovable without trying to give you the razzle dazzle, you know? I can just sit here and know with assurance that I'm worth being friends with today.
100%.
And I don't have to like
put on a show. Yeah. You can take the mask off.
Yeah.
And people will still like you for you, which is such a cool feeling because I thought I was always going to have the mask on.
Yeah. Well, when I don't know about you, but when I'm drinking and using and not doing my best to live in God's will, I could use a mask.
Yeah.
You don't want to look at this. This is not what it's not it.
Yeah, it was not a pretty picture for me.
It's not a pretty picture. Today, low self-esteem be damned, I'm a lot more comfortable with myself, even with what I look like. Just because I know what I bring to a table today. I know, what I have to offer, and I know what that's worth.
Absolutely.
I know the level of use that I can be to my fellows today, which is profound. I wasn't useful to anyone, myself included.
Ain't that the truth?
I was not helpful. I was not reliable. I was not responsible. Today, you know, it baffles me every time I say this. Today, I can be trusted to educate people's children. And I used to be a dog. Like, it baffles me.
Yeah. That's the gifts of sobriety.
Yeah.
That's the gift of staying sober for an extended period of time is, you know, we get those things back. People trust us. People let us be around their children. They let me hold their baby or have a key to their house. Or
Yeah.
I just had a friend text me before we started asking if I could come check on their dog a couple times this week because their dog just had surgery and they're both going to be at work. And like, they're just going to let me in their house while they're both gone. Bro, you should never have done that 6 years ago because I was going to ransack your medicine cabinet.
I was for sure stealing from you.
Yeah. If you had valuables, you better have had them locked down because I was going to take them. But today, I don't have to live like that. Like, you know, I have that trust of people who are around me. And that's something that I was never able to experience before sobriety.
It's really beautiful.
It absolutely is. Well, Birdie, thank you so much for coming and sharing your story with us today. It's been really cool getting to talk more in depth with you about it. I learned some things that I haven't always known, which is one of my favorite parts about this. You know, we've been friends for a long time, but it's rare that we have a one-on-one where we can just share our stories. And that's something beautiful about recovery, too, is just being able to connect with another person without the mask on and to actually get to know who we are as people. But thank you guys for tuning in, everybody who joined us live and listening on all the podcast channels. Before we go real quick, I do want to shout out Whiskey and Milk. As you guys know, I'm always wearing some of our Whiskey and Milk merch. I've got the hoodie on today, the Whiskey and Milk one. It's kind of a if you know thing. You know, it comes straight from that 12-step literature that we were referencing on this episode. And if you've read it, some of the stories will stand out. You know, we've got stuff from Whiskey and Milk. We've got stuff from the Jaywalker, the Tomb of the Hampshire Grenadier. And it lets you rep your recovery without necessarily breaking your anonymity. You know, everybody's not going to know what's going on here. But if you know, you're going to know. You can find us at whiskeyandmilk.com. You can find us on TikTok, Instagram, Facebook, all under Whiskey and Milk. If you want to check out the full-length podcast with video format, it's under Recovery Uncovered on YouTube, or you can find the audio everywhere podcasts are found. Thanks for tuning in, and we'll see you guys next week.
Attention, now arriving at your destination. The last house on the block.